Welcome to another episode of Unraveling Intellectual Property with Michael Stein. Today, and actually we're going to have a two-part series here because there's a lot to talk about. We are going to talk about what startups, small businesses, mid-sized businesses need to consider when starting a company and also continuing during its lifespan, and particularly in relationship to intellectual property. And today we have Marc Whipple, an attorney here at Stein IP. Welcome, Marc.
Thank you.
And the first thing I'd like to discuss is what are the most important things to think about when starting a new business?
Well, first, you want to decide where it's going to be. Secondly, you want to decide who's going to run it, who's going to have the final say if there are disagreements, who's going to contribute capital, whether that be money, intellectual property, or sweat, who's going to take out how much money or other property from the corporation. And then you start to consider the legal ramifications of all of those things. For us, it's the most important thing. For you, it kind of comes last to actually start thinking about how to legally do it all. First, you need a picture in your head.
So when do you get the attorney involved? Do you need kind of an outline? Do you, I mean, of course, if you're starting a business, you have to have partners and figure something out, but where in the process do you want to get your business/intellectual property attorney involved?
Well, we're kind of like plumbers. The faster you call us, the less it will probably cost. You want to have that picture in your head because, I'm always happy to do business consulting as well. But if you come in with your picture in your head of kind of your overall scheme, it will save you a lot of money and time in dealing with me. But the faster you can in the process, usually the better off you will be.
And then if you're thinking about having going international, having businesses in other countries, are there additional things to think about, consider? It seemed like there would be.
There absolutely are. The two biggest things are taxes, which I am not a tax attorney. I know just enough to know when there's a tax issue and tell you to call a tax attorney. But the second thing is regulatory jurisdiction. If you're just going to be in the United States, you still may have to register as a foreign corporation just in other states, depending on what you do. And if you do business in other countries, you will definitely need to register there. So you need somebody who is familiar with that because it gets very complicated very fast. If all you're going to do is take orders, you may or may not need to do that. But anything above that, you definitely want to talk to somebody who knows what they're doing because some of these entities are very unforgiving.
And I believe there's probably not data rights, but security rights as far as information. I mean, I know Europe is very strict as to what personal information is provided and how you handle that. So I guess these things all need to be considered, correct?
Yes, if you're going to collect client information, and most businesses do, you need to know what's protectable, what's not, and what you have to do to protect it when it is. And as you say, in Europe, the rules are very strict, and they're quite different from the American rules. And in America, you have 50 different states, some of which have conflicting regulations. So you really, once you start accumulating significant amounts of data, you need somebody who knows these areas to talk to.
And so you're not an expert in everything around the world, although you have some expertise, but you collaborate with attorneys in multiple jurisdictions, I would imagine.
Absolutely. I do know attorneys who are literally experts in cybersecurity and privacy. I can consult with them. And of course, Stein has contacts all over the world if we need more specific information about the law of any given country.
And then when it comes to the formation of the business, I mean, you could set up as a partnership, you could set it up as a corporation, an LLC. You need to figure out what state, like what are some of the factors that go into all that determination?
Absolutely. What determines which of those formats you're going to use is usually how many people are going to be involved and how much capital the business is going to have up front. The more people and or the more capital, the more likely it is you will go from a partnership or a limited liability corporation, an LLC, to a corporation, whether an S corporation or a C corporation. And once you really get big, you may need to form GmbHs in other countries, which is like a corporation. It's just what they call it. And it gets, again, complicated fast. For most small businesses in the US, I'm usually going to recommend an LLC, but it will vary. And then as far as where you're going to form it, that depends on where you are and what your tax situation is for the most part. Most states have LLC and corporate regulatory agencies. My own state of Illinois does. I know that Michael's licensed states do as well. Nevada and Las Vegas, or Nevada and, I beg your pardon, Nevada and Delaware are very popular because of their tax situation. Again, that's something we discuss individually.
Um, I mean, uh, I didn't even know about Nevada. I didn't know about the gambling and all that. But Delaware, I mean, it's kind of common knowledge that a lot of entities, LLCs, corporations, form in Delaware. Why wouldn't everyone form a corporation in Delaware? Or what's the magic of Delaware?
The magic of Delaware is that they have very light requirements as far as what you need to register, what you do to keep your company active, because you will be filing annual reports, tax returns, all kinds of things. And their taxation burden historically is very low. That is also what Nevada is going for. Nevada is actually aiming to knock some of Delaware's business away. So they have very similar setups, in fact. But Delaware, of course, is the oldest state that really emphasizes that kind of stuff. And many, many large corporations are technically incorporated there, even if their headquarters are in California or New York or someplace like that.
And that goes all into the equation and the discussion that you would have. With respect to the trade name, trademark, trade dress even, should a business go through that process? And what are some of the benefits, caveats, whatever?
Absolutely. The business name can be a real hassle to deal with, as unfortunate as that is, because you might come up with what you think is the perfect name, and it's very unique and all of that good stuff. And then you go to try to register it 2 years later when your company is expanding, and you find out there's somebody, and this has happened to me, somebody in Colorado operating a little, business of some kind that has a similar name, and they have priority over you. And that means you could theoretically even be sued by them. But for the most part, it means that you may have trouble operating in Colorado under that name, if nothing else. And that goes for other countries as well, if you think you're going to expand internationally quickly. So you definitely want to find some good names. And then really it makes sense if you have some capital to have a trademark attorney like one of the ones from Stein do what we call a freedom to operate or a clearance search, where we make sure that you using that name is not going to cause you headaches later, because you don't want to change all your marketing and the big sign out front and all that stuff 2 years later because we didn't clear it to begin with. Again, it's like a plumber. Call them soon, you won't pay nearly so much.
I guess if you're thinking of going huge, you may even want to consider doing a search in another country or country.
Absolutely. And that is a thing that we do. Again, we can use contacts in other countries if we need to, or we can use experience at Stein to use international searching, because trademark searching internationally is something that most trademark attorneys of experience can handle pretty easily.
And then as far as making a determination with respect to the federal versus state, is there any point in filing a state trademark application?
The only time I would ever recommend that is if you have a really, really tight budget, because state trademark registrations are quite a bit cheaper, but they are not worth very much in the grand arena of federal or international business. So I would definitely work on a federal trademark if at all possible.
Yeah, I've done a few state trademark applications. The clients wanted to limit their issues to a few states, but I found it to be very unusual.
Yes.
All right, so as far as making determinations as patents and copyrights or even trade secrets, what should be some of the considerations? Who should own it? How should the finances be run? I mean, I know I'm throwing in a lot there as far as one question, maybe answer one at a time, so as not to overwhelm people, including myself.
Well, I'm going to answer that and treat it all as a lump because going into the specifics of patent versus trademark versus copyright um, comes way down the line for a business. But thinking about it in general is very important when you're starting up because you have the question of who originated it, who's going to own it, and how are they going to get paid for it. So say you have an inventor who's invented something, maybe they even already have a patent or at least an application, and then you have a friend who has some money and wants to contribute the capital. Now, obviously, the inventor wants to keep as many rights as they can for their invention, but the person who's contributing the money wants to make sure that they get as much return as they can. So there's an inherent conflict there, which is in every business, and it's something that we deal with every day. It's not a problem to deal with, but you do want to deal with it now rather than when you're successful, because when there's a lot of money standing in a pile, you would be amazed how quickly friendships and even familial relationships can fade. It's very sad, but it's absolutely true, and every lawyer knows it.
Now, money and politics, I guess,
Yes.
are two of the things that you got to be very careful about.
So you're going to be thinking about this when you do your picture that we talked about earlier. But as far as the IP, whatever it is, you have two options. Number one, the company can own it, which the inventor, the originator, assigns it to the company, and then it's treated just like the company's bank account. If the company is dissolved, it gets split in half, whatever. That's very common, can certainly be very useful. The other way is to license it to the company, either from a second entity or from the inventor. And that way, the inventor can be sure at the end of the day, if everything really, unfortunately, goes to heck, that they will get their invention that they spent years and years working on back. But you certainly want to draft your agreements so that any later revenue from it goes to remedy some of the capital loss that may have occurred. So those are the two big chunks. And that's true for a trademark, a copyright, a patent, trade secrets even, although trade secrets have to be protected in a different way. But you decide who's going to own it, who's going to get paid, and how.
And Mark, I think we've covered a lot. So let's end this as far as the first part of our two-part series on considerations for startups, small companies, and even mid-sized companies from both the beginning and through the life of the company. We'll be talking about a bunch of additional topics, so stay tuned and please watch us for the next episode. Take care, and thanks for watching.